not only for our fact-finding exercise that we have to do in any parenting manner, but also to be able to identify when our clients might benefit for a referral to someone like Judith, to help them through what can be a very difficult process in coping with separation, both as a spouse or ex-spouse and a parent, and for the children. Judith Locke is a clinical psychologist. She comes with some life experience as a former educator, school counsellor and workplace trainer. Judith Locke is the founder of Confident and Capable, which is a practice that deals with providing therapeutic assistance to our clients. So please welcome Judith.
Thank you very much. Thanks everybody. Thank you. Okay, so what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to talk about the whole sort of a type of parenting. So, and a modern type of parenting that just has emerged in the last 20 years or so, probably with a vengeance in the last 10 years. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about why that's come about, and then I'm going to look at some clinical issues associated with this type of parenting trend. Then I'm going to look at its impact on the likelihood of separation or divorce, and then look at the impact of separation and divorce on increasing that type of parenting, and then some solutions as well. Now, I keep walking over here to press forward, so I should have worked out a routine to sort of do as I sort of walked over there, but that's all right. Okay, so now
sorry to interrupt. Do you want me to sit there and press the button?
Oh, that would be fantastic, okay. If you don't mind.
Can do it.
Oh, that would be great, and I can go da-da, yes, or next one please, or something. That would be fantastic. Thank you. Okay, all right, so now look, I want to be absolutely clear on this. This is a really important point. I'm talking today about a very specific type of parent, and for want of a better word, I'm going to call them effortful parents. And these parents are parents that already give their child a lot of love and affection, all right? That's a very important thing to them, that they're not negligent in any way. They also provide a very safe and engaging environment for their child. There's lots of toys, there's lots of things to do, there's safety in the house, etc. They also, that the child is a very important member of the family, so they are treated as an important member. They're not in any way disregarded. And also, the parents themselves are in financially sound positions and are well educated. Indeed, I think education is one of the big things with this group, all right? So I'm talking about a very specific group here, not a group of the sorts of people that you often see with research about divorce and things like that, the neglected kids or the kids whose parents have been somewhat putative or something like that. Could I have the next one, please? Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is what has changed with parenting in the last few decades. So, okay, so there's a couple of societal influences on parenting at the moment. The first thing is that spending more is much more normalised. Now, houses that used to only have to have one bathroom for 3 kids are now 3 bathrooms or 4 bathrooms for 3 kids, and a huge 4-wheel drive to get those kids everywhere, and the right suburb to live in and things like that, and the right school to go to. Now, the pressure on parents for that is much more now than it used to. Would you agree? Absolutely. When you were growing up, you know, you did not have the luxuries that kids today take for granted. So the thing is that is now much more normalised. The other thing is that media has a huge impact on parents, and it kind of hyping parents up at the moment, hyping a lot of people up, but particularly hyping up parents in terms of parenting, in terms of sort of really pushing that idea that the world is a dangerous place, that, you know, if a child walks outside of the house, they're likely to be accosted by some pedophile, that, you know, that even walking on, climbing a tree will have them, you know, a paraplegic or something. So the thing is that unfortunately what has happened is that parents are starting to really not trust the environment and not trust other people, not even trust schools. I would argue that a lot of the My Schools website is about not trusting the education system and needing proof that the schools are doing, you know, the right thing by them. So it's a sort of fearful environment out there for parents. The other thing, and I think this is a key thing, is the psychological misunderstandings. what has been really pushed, unfortunately, by a misunderstanding of psychology is this idea that one event in childhood ruins you for life. All right? Now, I'm not talking a huge thing. I'm talking just going to the wrong school and that's it, their future's done for, you know? Or just having one incident happen to them where their parent didn't let them go to a dance and that's it, it's all over for them. Or one experience of being bullied. So the thing is that unfortunately, parents have this sort of idea, one wrong move on my part and my child is ruined. All right? Now, again, I'm talking about those really effortful parents that are well educated, read all this psychological stuff, and are very concerned about this. Okay. So what has changed with parenting? Okay, so there is more financial pressure on people and material pressure on people. Because of that financial pressure, working role is more extensive, hours are longer, you feel like you have to advance more in your career to buy the sorts of things that you need to buy, the 5-bedroom houses and 5-bathroom houses and things like that. That parents have much more fears about their child and their future and what's happening around them and what's happening in society. And there's absolutely more pressure on parents to do this outstanding job. And it's interesting, it's almost like a perfectionism in these parents in that they're constantly kind of giving themselves a report card on a daily basis as to how their parenting is going. And so then what happens is that they're constantly under pressure because they're doing this daily report card of how much my child likes me. And unfortunately, a lot of that is dictated by the well-being of their child. So just this phase, and the parent's thinking, I'm doing a bad job today and I have to fix it up. Do you know the sorts of people I'm talking about here? Yeah? Yep, okay. So, and the other problem that's really quite a problem is, and I'm seeing now a lot of parents of children in their 20s, okay, they come to see me, they're concerned about their children because their children are still living at home. Now again, 30 years ago, nobody had problems with children in their 20s because they weren't living at home, all right? Now, it's gotten so, this is quite serious in that a couple of years ago, I actually met a 31-year-old who was still sharing a bedroom with his brother in his parents' house. And he had not left home at all right? This is the sort of thing that's really, so really now, I do surveys of the parents that I do education to, and they're saying on average now about 25 years old is where they feel their child is independent.
Well, in fact, sorry, am I allowed to
no,
talk?
please.
The Institute of Family Studies say 26.
Yeah, it's phenomenal,
incredible.
isn't it? So if you so not only is this pressure on you for your child to like you, you have to get them to like you until they're 25 years old at least, or your life is horrible at home. And the thing that's really interesting about that is that then parents start getting involved in universities. The very first day I stumbled across this at QUT, they are now giving lectures to parents on how to help your child cope with university. All right, so they're turning up. They're finding some of American companies that parents are turning up to job interviews with their child, okay, and asking them what are their benefits in this job and what can you guarantee. So the thing is that unfortunately this parenting role is being extended, so there's more pressure on parents. Okay, so this has resulted in a type of parenting, and these are the type of parenting I'm talking about. Has everybody heard of the term helicopter parenting? Okay, no, anybody? Helicopter parents hover over the child, all right? There's a new term for that as well. It's Black Hawk parenting, where they're like really down there, okay? They've got precision in it. The other one
I like that.
Yes. The other one is lawnmower parenting, and that is where they're mowing over obstacles in their child's way. So it's the sort of thing you're seeing, you know, you've heard of some of those American cases of the mother kicking the kid that's better than their child on the cheerleading squad to, you know, so the child can get into the cheerleading. That's lawnmower parenting.
And
okay?
why wouldn't you?
Sorry?
Why wouldn't you?
Yes, well, exactly. They're doing all they can. And another expression they call that is over-parenting, overly effortful parenting, and intensive parenting, all right? And look, in terms of are they genuinely different parenting styles, these are the way we've traditionally thought of parenting styles, in that Baumrind actually sort of divvied them up and talked about two main areas of parenting: demandingness or rules, and warmth or love and affection. Okay, so they decided that parents had either high warmth or low warmth, or high rules or low rules. And they came up with 4 basic types of parenting, in that the authoritative ones who had high warmth and high rules, permissive, who were very warm to their children but didn't have a lot of rules, authoritarian, the ones that have really lots of rules but not a lot of warmth, and negligent, those who have no rules or no warmth. And so there are certain things associated, with each of these styles. Now, without a doubt, authoritative is well established in the literature as being the best type of parenting. Okay, and then this is obviously the worst type of parenting, in that when children don't get love and they don't get rules, that's a problem. But in the original research, the main things they were actually interested in is these 2 types of parents as they relate to this. And these are called the permissive parents. While those children are often very confident in themselves, there's a lot of sort of misconduct, drug use, those sorts of things, because the parents don't have any sort of system in place where the child has to fit into systems, and so they're not sort of able to sort of fit in as well. The authoritarian ones are parents that yell a lot and aren't very warm, and there's often sort of anxieties and things like that to do with that. So in terms of this helicopter parenting, we're not actually sure if it is just permissive type of parent, or is it an extreme of this? And I'm doing some research on it this moment, and kind of my theories are, I actually think that helicopter parents or overly effortful parents, I actually have a theory they might actually be giving too many hugs, right? Watch this space, in about a year or 2 I'll know this, but I have a feeling that they're hugging, but they're hugging for the wrong reasons. They're hugging to make sure that they stay close to their child, as opposed to hugging them in the right place just to know that they love them. So it's actually almost at times an anxious act. And even with control, maybe they actually do have very high control of their child, but their control of their child is so high that they're controlling the child's environment as well, and controlling everything about the child's life, like what their teacher says to them at school and what other kids say to them at school and things like that. So we're not sure, or is it just extreme levels of these 2 things? We're not sure. Okay, so in my practice, as was said, I'm a clinical psychologist in private practice, and I have had a private practice in Sydney. I've also had one in Brisbane. I've also worked for a parenting program for a number of years, delivering parenting programs, trainings to other professionals around the world. And so a lot of the sort of work that I do is a lot of parenting stuff, because I used to be a teacher, because of the experience I've had. I do a lot of this sort of work. So these are the sorts of issues I see. I tend to see family issues, okay, a lot of family issues of young children and older children, so sort of parenting issues. Often they come to me with a different focus. They come to me concerned about their 2-year-old, but of course I can't treat the 2-year-old, so it does become a sort of parenting thing. I see a lot of child issues in terms of behaviour issues or anxiety or perfectionism, adolescent issues such as depression. I'm seeing a lot more of these these days, young adult issues like anxiety and depression, but also young adults still living in the family home issues. And I'm seeing a lot of family issues, as I said before, of 20-year-olds who are still living at home but are somewhat abusive to their parents, or treating them very badly, or dating an entirely unsuitable boyfriend who stays overnight and treats them terribly, and they don't know what to do about it and things like that. So that's a big focus. Now, all of these clients that I see, because I'm an inner city practice, most of the clients I would see are from loving homes generally, but actually most of the issues are absolutely impacted by this overly effortful parenting, and I'm going to talk about that for a moment. Please throw out any questions. The other thing that I want to say too is I don't want to in any way be overly critical of these types of parents, because I think actually in terms of a parenting approach, it is the most overly effortful, high work, high intensity that they can do. These parents are very selfless in what they do for their children. They're working very hard to put them through private schools that they can't afford, or live in suburbs they really can't afford so they can go to the right state school, or buy them things. And so the thing is that you know, it's not that they're deliberately doing anything to their children whatsoever. In any way, it's very inadvertent effects, but it is having an impact on the child's well-being and also having an impact on the parent's well-being. So I totally understand this, and I, like any of you who've got children at home, know when your child drops their ice cream, how much you want to make it better for them and how you're willing to drive that 20 kilometres back to that ice cream store and buy that other ice cream and bring it home because you can't bear them crying. I completely understand what these parents do. Yes?
Are there any statistics, or are you keeping statistics about children who use the word family a lot, as to whether they're coming primarily from families that are nuclear with a him and a her, or just a him, or just a her, or
both. They're coming from both. A lot of the research sort of splits that up, and I've got some research that I know. There's an article I refer to that I've got the reference to at the end that talks about the impact of separation on heightening some of these tendencies in parents.
So it doesn't actually change those diagrams of things, and it doesn't make any significant or noteworthy difference in
single parents or
yes.
in two-parent families. Well, actually, interestingly enough, there's different impacts on that, in that sometimes some single-parent families get more overly effortful because their main relationship is then with their child as opposed to a partner being in the house. And even just having a bad cop around going, really? You think you should buy him that much? You know, come on. There's not that going on. But often to two parents, their focus is so much on the child that it can actually heighten it as well. So, yeah, not a huge difference for what I know of that yet. We haven't seen much difference in that yet. Yeah, and no difference in the data I'm getting back so far. Yeah. If anything, though, I will say separated parents feel more guilty about what they've done to their child, you know, and the impact, the emotional impact that would have. So they are a little bit more likely to be a little bit more overly effortful because of the issues that they perceive their child will be having as a result of the actions. Okay, all right, so if we can, yeah, great. Okay, so here's the problem with extremely high efforts in parenting and subsequent beliefs, and I'm going to talk through each one of these. So if we could just have the next one. Okay, the first one is the concern the parents are sacrificing enormously to give their children all of this stuff and all of this love and all of this attention and fixing all their problems, etc. So the thing is that the parents are actually, their well-being suffers. Indeed, how they feel about themselves are, what I talk a lot to my clients about is it's as if your child is your daily temperature check on how you're doing as a person. And if your child is happy, you are a good person and you are a good parent. And if your child is sad, you've done badly today, it's a bad thing. Now, for young kids, because their emotions are so up and down, but generally, they're somewhat generally compliant, that's fine. But when a child gets to teenage years, they manipulate that, okay? And good on them for doing it. God bless them, you know, but they do manipulate it in that they can sit there with a kind of on their face, and they know their parent will jump. Okay, they know their parent will do that because their parents are very used to checking with their child all the time, whether they're doing okay or not. So the thing is that unfortunately, the parent starts to have this externalized control where their child is kind of getting them what to do, telling them what to do and sort of indicating it. It starts to lead into a lack of confidence with parents.
Judy, can I just ask you? Sorry to interrupt.
No, please.
What do you think the genesis of that is, though? Like with the parents, you know, the parents sacrificing, you know, the parents internalising, and I mean, what is it? What is the trigger for that?
I think it's a misunderstanding of what kids need to end up successful.
But why is that happening now? Why is this a phenomenon now and not 20 years ago? Is it commercialism?
I think it is a bit of commercialism. I think even just take movies alone. When I was growing up, there were about 3 kids' movies released a year. You'd get one on your birthday, you know, or books. You'd wait till your birthday for the books. because marketers realise what kids are worth to them, they are just producing much more and really sort of drumming into parents the idea of, to be a good parent, you have to do this with them, you have to buy the antibacterial
So they're being
stuff.
seduced.
They're absolutely being seduced. But the other thing too that's been bad for this is the feel-good movement that came out of California in the 70s. That idea that to make yourself feel good and to make your children feel good, you have to praise them all the time and you have to tell them they're special 24/7.
Is that part of the you can be anything? Every
Yes.
child can be
Yes.
anything,
Yeah,
every
that
child-
bullshit.
Yes,
Sorry.
you are all special. And if you go into any school these days, they've got, you know, pictures up
Yeah.
all around the wall.
Yeah.
I am special, you are he is
Yeah.
special, we are
Yeah.
all special.
You can
Every
achieve
child
anything.
wins a prize on every day, that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it absolutely came with good intentions, the idea that building confidence. But the really faulty thing about this, and the thing that they haven't sort of twigged to, and psychologists like Seligman have, you know, there's a lot that have twigged to that, but not many, is that idea that you can't feel good without doing good. Whereas these parents think you can feel good by owning stuff and feel good by being told you're good and feel good by, you know, looking good and that sort of thing, as opposed to actually doing good things. So the thing is unfortunately with this stuff, when parents are taking all this responsibility for their child, is that unfortunately when their child falls, rather than the parent sitting back and going, and what are you going to do and how are you going to pick yourself up, the parent races in because they go, my goodness, if my child falls, there's their self-esteem gone. But the trouble is when you're running in all the time and picking up the child and saying, I can fix you, I can help you, you're a marvellous girl, don't worry about everybody else, the child doesn't fix it for themselves. So a lot of the anxiety and depression I'm seeing in the 20-year-old clients are they have low self-concept because their parents have fixed everything for them. The other thing I hate to say, and I will talk about this in a moment, but the other thing that comes out of it is narcissism. Okay? Because when you are told all the time that you're fantastic, you really do think you're fantastic. Hello, Australian Idol. You know, like really, that's what Australian Idol is. They stand up and they sing, and everybody goes, "You're not that good a singer," or even someone like Dicko or any of those judges say, "Actually, you're not that good," and he's a meanie and a terrible, you know, terrible person. Because we are so used to that praise culture. Even in the workplace, you might have noticed this. Never say a bad thing in a performance review without two good things. You know that sandwich technique? I really like your shoes, you're fired, but what a lovely hairstyle. You know, like, you know, it's this kind of thing. Or even, and I've noticed, this is particularly when I was working in Sydney, how many stress claims are to do with a bad performance review of young kids. You know, of like Gen Y get a bad performance review and they want to leave for stress because the employers told them, I'd really like you to turn up to work on time. How dare you? You know, like, or even Gen Y calling. Times I've been at a hairdresser, Gen Y calling, and everybody knows what Gen Y is. Gen Y's under 30, I think now, between 14 and 30. Can't come to work today, I've got a hangover, you know, because kind of, well, Mum's always done my assignments when I was unwell, or, you know, Dad's always, so the thing is that unfortunately, while everybody loves to have a good complaint about Gen Y in their workplace, the thing is they're not that resilient because they're absolutely subject to bad reviews. They feel like they can't cope because they're so used to their parents coping. Okay,
Their parents now as well, aren't they?
Yeah, and that's an interesting trend. I've got a slide on that because I've noticed that as being an interesting trend. Yeah, with that. Actually, I think a lot of the grandparents are looking after their kids.
Because no idea how to problem solve. So,
No.
I mean, that's going to be a real issue to see the next generation.
Yeah. Although, you know, it's interesting. I was reading stuff the other day that talked about the parents of the 40s and the 50s were very indulgent as well. And they produced the baby boomers. So, does it go indulged, not so indulged, you know, I don't know.
Having said that, you can understand. I mean, I can understand. I mean, I'm a baby boomer. I mean, in terms of the World War,
Yes.
you know, World War II, you can understand why that sort of phenomenon of indulgence actually, you know, was created after the war. So I think the dynamics are quite different
Oh, absolutely.
today to what they were in the late 40s, early 50s.
And economically, we're more prosperous now, and there are more things they can have now than they used to have. There was still a limit to money, there was still a limit to everything back there, and even just in terms of expectations of, you know, when you got this age, you would get a trade, and you would, you know, move out, or you'd get a job, or you know, whatever it is. And if you were smart, you went to uni, but not. But where even now, the expectation that all children will go to university is a modern thing. You know, like university is a given as opposed to what it used to be. Okay, so if I could have the next one. Okay, when a child lives in a house where every photo on the wall is of them, when they buy when the storybook comes in and the storybook is about them, okay, you know those storybooks you can buy where you insert your child's name in there, when the whole home is revolving around the child, what happens to the child? Well, the child actually starts to believe they are the centre of the universe. And look, that's developmentally appropriate for toddlers, okay, and for young kids. They are the centre of the universe. That's what they do. The trouble is this then starts to move into adolescence. There is some suggestion that perceptions of bullying, okay, are actually encouraged by narcissistic approaches to the world. If you think you are, now this is a true story I heard the other day from a school counsellor in school. One child said to another child, "I run faster than you." The mother came to the school the next day to complain about the bullying. Seriously, just a report of "I'm faster than you" was perceived as being a bullying incident. And that sort of, and again, because they're not socially capable of negotiating things, and this is the other thing, you go to any playground these days in the inner city, and you notice that if children start fighting, parents race in and save them. Parents don't let kids sort stuff out, you know, anymore. They race in and they save them. Even walking a dog. People won't let their dog near your dog because, gosh, they might fight and, you know. So it's a weird kind of closeting we're doing of all these things, you know. Fearful of the impact of our child's impact on others, but also fearful of others on our child. Whereas really, again, 20, 30 years ago, parents would sit back and let them sort it out. If a child came over and said, "He hit me," well, what did you do to him? You know, did anybody get parented that way? You know, that teacher doesn't like me, well, you must have done something wrong, you know, like, but there's not that sort of assumption anymore. That's kind of what did they do and that sort of thing. So the thing is that they become very vulnerable for this. There's also academic entitlement. Academic entitlement is the sense that others should work for you to get you your marks. All right, so sort of, again, very much produced by this type of parenting where they're expecting that, you know, if they got, say, 85 out of 100 and the cutoff for a high distinction is 85, they should get the 80, you know, the high distinction because they worked hard. Okay, or if they forgot the assignment, it's actually the teacher's fault because they didn't remind them, okay? Or if they do badly, and this is even, you see this in the paper a lot too, that somehow the school's now responsible for the children's marks, not the kids. Do you know, like that if a child goes to a certain school, they'll get a certain mark. And working in an independent school in Sydney, I remember a parent once saying to me, "What am I getting for my money here?" when they were told that their child was getting B's, as if going to a school could make their child smarter, and yet their child was doing well. But there's this sort of idea that you add the right bits in the equation and your child will be a genius. You add the right bits into the equation and they will be a singing superstar. You know, and sort of that sort of idea that you can kind of nurture them into that, very much a modern thing. In fact, modern idea is effort equals achievement, okay? Which that was not around. Again, that's actually came out of World War II, that sort of idea, that Nazi sort of superior race thing. We went so far the other way of that, we're at... Oh, look at that. Hello, everybody. How did that happen? Yeah, anyway, okay. Can you...
We can still see.
Yeah, you can still see it. Okay, so the thing is that they went the other way and they said everybody can achieve everything, all right? But that makes, of course, then when the children don't achieve, then it's their fault or it's someone else's fault, you know, as opposed to, hey, that's just the way the world works. You can't be the, you know, supermodel. And the other thing that's really problematic with this, This is an expression of getting being part of the community, being a leaf on a tree. These kids aren't a leaf on a tree. They're the tree. They're that tree. They're a little tree by themselves, that's absolutely cared for, but not part of a forest. Okay? And we draw great strength. Has anybody worked in a company where you don't respect your manager, where you don't respect anybody? It is the loneliest place ever. There's some comfort in knowing I've got somebody above me that I respect, that supports me. I've got somebody next to me that I respect. When you think you're the smartest person in the room, it's a horrible, most beautiful, best looking, all this. It's a terrible place for people, and really lacking in resilience not to have that sort of support around, or expecting too much support. Okay. Now the other thing that's a problem with this is that unfortunately what are essentially minor adjustment issues become major issues very quickly. So so your child comes home from school. They walk in, how was school today? It was awful. I was bullied by someone, or Johnny doesn't like me, whatever it is. Okay. Now for a parent, they go, right, this is an important parenting moment, okay? This is really important what I do now. This is what it's all for. So what they do is they come over and they give enormous attention. Oh, honey, come and tell me all about it. And what did they say? What did they do? Oh, that's terrible, that's terrible. Nurture, nurture, nurture. Now, that's understandable. I'm not criticising that. But for a lot of kids, they realise that they get much more attention for that than it was all right. Do you know? It was okay. Or I had a good day. How was your day at school? I had a good day. Great. Walk away, do your thing, because great. You don't need me to parent you now. You're okay. I can go and put the dinner on. But if you come home sad, depressed, angry, it's my moment, and I'm going to give you a lot of attention for it. Now, inadvertently, what happens is that starts to encourage a child to actually deliver problem behaviours on a regular basis. It happens in schools as well. They can get out of maths by being sad, by going to the school counsellor and things like that. So rather than listening to the problem, and I'm not saying at all don't listen to the bullying incident, don't listen to that, but rather than listening and solving, but also listening to the good days, these parents are overly giving attention. So what happens is that they over-listen, they overemphasise issues, and the worst thing, they solve them for their child. I will ring that school tomorrow to make sure you're not bullied. I will ring your teacher and sort that out. I will ring that child's parent, and sort that out. And it's exactly the same as what they do in the playground. They come over and solve the issue for their child. So their child starts to think, A, they can't solve issues, B, it's the parent's responsibility to solve everything for them. So it is a disempowering thing for the child. The other thing I've noticed a lot in my private practice over the years is parents self-diagnose behavioural issues to be emotional issues. So when a child is being naughty, rather than just saying they're being naughty, they go, oh, they've had a bad day. They don't like it when Miss Smith is away, So I'll excuse it and probably give them a treat because they're probably a bit, as opposed to, that's just naughty behaviour that I've got to deal with. All right, so again, it's because they feel useful with that. I'll sit and I'll work out, I'll be a sleuth and work out what exactly it is the reason for. Now you can see, and I'm going to talk about this in a moment, you can see how this would be really impacted by a divorce, because after a divorce, there's a good excuse for the next year. There's a good excuse to let a child get away with enormous behavioural issues and put it down just to the separation or whatever it is. So it becomes very difficult. The other thing is that other children start to feel that other people are responsible for them because the parents are over-anticipating these issues, that children become so used to it that they actually expect it. And so your classic kind of, forgive me, not all Gen Ys are like this, but your classic thing, you even see it in older people in the workplace too, slam the door. And then somebody, what's wrong? Well, I don't, because they're just so used to, in their homes, doing the face or slamming something, and rather than the parents just saying, oh, whatever, they go, honey, what's wrong? How can I solve this for you? So unfortunately, they start to expect everybody around them to fix their bad day, to fix their performance, to blame it on others. So again, a very disempowering thing and a loss of self-autonomy, okay, and high pressure on parents. Okay, The other thing is this sets up, when you are doing that, when you have mortgaged your house to put your child through the school they need to go through, what are you owed then? I think it's just human nature to think, I will, you know, put myself in financial difficulty to put them through the school that I really want them to go to. But I'm kind of hoping the end result of that will be they're a lawyer or a doctor, or they'll stay close to me for the rest of their life, or they won't date anybody unsuitable, or that, you know, like they won't. So the thing is, and the other thing, children start to kind of get this invoice too, I suppose that's going on, in that they start to recognise that their parents want certain things from them, or the kids start to expect the parent to look after them for the rest of their life. Speaking to some lecturers recently, parents are ringing up universities and saying, Johnny's not good at oral assignments, can he do a written assignment instead for that? Like, ringing universities to, you know, to tell lecturers. But again, is the child so used to that they're just going, come on, mum or dad, you know, you've always done it for me, you do it now, you've done it all your life of sort of fixing things. So I don't know if the invoice works the other way as well. I suspect it does, but very interesting. Okay, so let's now talk about separating families. Do we have any questions so far? No? Okay.
I'm just wondering where normal fits into this.
Oh, it's, yeah, well, normal, look, I would say...
Is this normal?
No.
Yeah, look...
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
I think you're talking about, I mean, I actually know what you're talking about, and I see it. I used to see it when I was a counsellor over the last 30 years, but really at the end of the day, and I mean, it's real, it's still real, but we're only talking about, don't you think, a small percentage of the population?
No,
I mean, we're talking about a privileged group here.
Yeah, look, actually, I would love to say yes.
No?
But I'm noticing no.
Really?
But remember where I work and the people I deal with. Do you know, I work in Toowong. I'm an independent school central, do you know, or, you know, nice state school central. I am the sorts of parents I'm, and I don't know, and it's sort of an interesting question. Do helicopter parents have a greater tendency to send their children to, or live in certain places? You know, we can't live any further out than this suburb, or we can't, you know, we have to send to this school. I don't know. I do think our norms have changed. I remember about, oh gosh, it was 10 years ago, I remember an ad in the Sydney Morning Herald that it was advertising a new video camera, and it showed that you could actually delete the bad parts of a sporting game. So it had some frames of Johnny missing